Most people think a morning routine is about productivity, waking up earlier, doing more, optimizing every minute, checking boxes before the day begins. But that's not why mornings matter. And that misunderstanding is why most routines fail. Because your morning isn't about what you do, it's about who you become before the world gets access to you. Whether you realize it or not, your morning is the moment your identity is set for the day. Before messages, before demands, before responsibilities, before distractions. In those first moments after waking, your mind is highly suggestible. Your emotional state is unguarded. Your subconscious is listening. And most people unknowingly hand that moment away. They wake up and immediately react to notifications, to stress, to obligations, to other people's priorities. And without realizing it, they start the day from yesterday's identity. The same patterns, the same emotions, the same self-talk, the same expectations. They don't choose who they are being, they default to it. And then they wonder why their days feel repetitive, why motivation fades by noon, why growth feels exhausting, why change never sticks. Because the day didn't fail them. The identity running the day was never updated. Here's the truth most people never hear. Your morning routine is not about discipline. It's about identity alignment. It's the moment you either reinforce the version of yourself you've been living as, or introduce your subconscious to a version of you it hasn't met yet. And if the identity doesn't change in the morning, the rest of the day simply follows old instructions. That's why New Year's resolutions fade. That's why habits don't stick. That's why people feel reset for a day and then fall right back. They tried to change behavior without changing the identity that wakes up each morning. But when you understand what mornings are actually for, everything shifts. Because the first moments of your day aren't neutral. They are formative. And what you do with them quietly decides who you become next. Every morning your mind asks one silent question before the day even begins. Who am I today? And your routine, or lack of one, answers it. Not with words, but with signals. When you wake up rushed, your nervous system learns urgency. When you wake up reactive, your subconscious learns survival. When you wake up distracted, your identity defaults to fragmentation. And those signals don't fade as the day goes on. They compound. Because your subconscious assumes whatever state you wake up in is the state you need to live from. This is why mornings matter more than any other time of day. Not because they're productive, but because they are programmable. Your brain is still transitioning from sleep to wakefulness. Your emotional defenses are lowered. Your internal narrative is still forming, which means whatever you introduce in those first moments sets the tone your subconscious follows. Most people never realize this. They wake up and immediately consume news, messages, stress, comparison, noise. And without intending to, they allow the external world to decide who they will be that day. But here's the deeper truth. Your morning routine is not a checklist. It's a conversation with your subconscious. It tells your mind, this is how we begin. This is what matters. This is who we are. If your mornings are chaotic, your subconscious learns chaos. If your mornings are rushed, your identity learns urgency. If your mornings are neglected, your self-worth quietly absorbs that message. But when mornings are intentional, something different happens. You don't just feel calmer, you feel grounded. You don't just feel focused, you feel aligned. Because alignment isn't created by doing more, it's created by starting differently. And once you understand that mornings are the doorway through which identity walks into the day, you stop treating them casually. You stop asking, what should I do in the morning? And start asking, who do I want to be before the world touches me? That question changes everything. Because once identity is set early, behavior follows naturally, and the day no longer feels like something you have to survive. It becomes something you are prepared to shape. There is a subtle but powerful realization that changes how you see your mornings forever. Your morning routine is the first act of self-trust each day. It's the moment you decide whether you lead yourself or abandon yourself. Most people don't realize how often they betray themselves in the first moments after waking. They ignore their own needs. They rush their own awareness. They silence their own intention. They hand their attention to everyone else. And over time, that pattern teaches the subconscious something painful. My needs come last. My inner world doesn't matter. I respond before I choose. Those messages don't disappear. They shape confidence. They shape boundaries. They shape how you move through the day. But when you create even a small morning ritual, not to optimize, not to impress, not to perform, but to honor yourself, everything changes. Because honoring yourself before the world asks anything of you builds an internal signal of safety. It tells your subconscious, I can rely on myself. I am present. I am grounded. I am in control of my direction. And that signal ripples outward. You become less reactive. You become more deliberate. You respond instead of react. You carry yourself differently. This is why people with strong morning routines often feel unshakable, not because they're disciplined, but because they start each day from self-alignment. This is the shift most people miss. Consistency in honoring yourself creates identity faster than any habit ever could. The morning isn't about productivity. It's about relationship, the relationship you have with yourself. And when that relationship is stable, your confidence no longer depends on how the day unfolds. You don't need everything to go right to feel grounded. You don't need approval to feel steady. You don't need motivation to feel capable, because your day already began from a place of inner authority. And that authority, once established, changes how every choice after it feels. What comes next is how to translate this understanding into something simple, repeatable, and powerful enough to reshape your days over time. A powerful morning routine doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need to be complex, and it doesn't need to look impressive. It needs to be intentional. Because the goal of a morning routine is not to accomplish tasks, it's to set identity. So instead of asking, what should I do every morning, ask something far more effective. What signal do I want to send my subconscious about who I am becoming? From there, the routine becomes simple. One moment of stillness before stimulation. One deliberate breath before urgency. One intentional thought before distraction. It could be sitting in silence for 60 seconds. It could be writing one sentence about how you intend to show up. It could be stretching your body instead of grabbing your phone. It could be choosing presence before performance. The action itself doesn't matter. The meaning behind it does. Because that meaning tells your subconscious, I am in control of my direction. I lead myself. I choose my state. I am not at the mercy of the day. And when that message is repeated daily, your identity begins to shift. You don't feel rushed so easily. You don't feel scattered so quickly. You don't lose yourself the moment things get busy, because your day didn't start from reaction. It started from alignment. This is how small routines create massive internal change. Not by adding more habits, but by reinforcing one truth: you can be trusted with yourself. And once your subconscious believes that, everything else becomes easier to build. Habits stick. Boundaries strengthen. Focus deepens. Confidence stabilizes. Not because you're forcing discipline, but because your identity has been set before the day began. And when identity leads, behavior follows naturally. What comes next is the closing realization, the understanding of why mornings, when used intentionally, become the foundation for long-term change. There comes a point when you realize your mornings were never about productivity, discipline, or doing more. They were about who you meet yourself as before the world gets involved. Every morning is an invitation to repeat the identity you've been living from or to quietly introduce yourself to a new one. And the most powerful part is this: you don't need perfect conditions. You don't need an ideal schedule. You don't need hours of free time. You just need one moment where you choose yourself first. That moment becomes an anchor that reminds your subconscious that you are present, capable, and intentional. And once that anchor is set, the rest of the day moves differently. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of drift. You lead instead of follow old patterns. Not because life is suddenly easier, but because you are no longer starting the day from the version of yourself that was shaped by urgency and survival. You are starting from alignment. And alignment compounds. One morning becomes a pattern. The pattern becomes an identity. The identity becomes the way you live. That is how real change happens. Not in dramatic breakthroughs, but in quiet consistency. And the most powerful part is this: every morning you get to decide again who you meet yourself as, what story you reinforce, what identity you carry into the world. The day doesn't define you, the morning does. And when your mornings align with who you are becoming, your life has no choice but to follow.